We have Scotty Moore, who's kind of like a plethora of orange and polk and Osceola, and he's running for U.S. Congressional District number 9. Welcome, you guys. How are you guys doing?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Great.
Fantastic to be here.
you.
Thank you so much.
We're so happy to have you. So if you guys, we want to give you a minute and you guys can just tell us what seat you're running for and the communities that you guys are covering.
Great. Again, welcome everybody. So glad you are tuning in. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Florida Freedom Keepers. Woo! I am running for District 9, which is against the Democrat Darren Soto. He votes 100% of the time with Nancy Pelosi, and it involves part of Orange County, the southern part, into Osceola County. Currently involves Polk County right now as we speak. It's being debated up in Tallahassee. They're doing the redistricting. You know, some of the state lines have already been drawn. Other lines haven't, which are the congressional lines. And so we're still waiting to see and figure out how all that figures out. Most likely it'll be part of Orange County into Osceola County with a little bit of Polk kind of sprinkled in there. But again, Scotty Moore for Congress.com. You can check me out and follow more information. And of course, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, things like that. You can go on my Facebook. But yeah, running against Democrat Darren Soto. If you like the direction where we're going and where Nancy Pelosi and Biden are leading us, then maybe I'm not your guy. But if you disagree, then I'd love and invite you to be a part of investigating who I am and join with me.
Awesome. Melissa, back to you for our opening question tonight.
Yes. Thank you guys so much. One thing I love about all three of you is that you guys are not career politicians. You guys have all entered this race as regular citizens just trying to make a difference. So what I would like for you to share with a minute or two is what motivated you to run for office, since this is something you haven't done before.
Yeah, you know, my journey really started 20 years ago where I think the Lord just really birthed the passion for politics. Now, I got involved with an organization called Campus Crusade for Christ, now known CRU, and I actually lived in Brazil for 6 years. And living overseas, I had a chance to observe and see and experience the United States from afar, and even just the beauty of how amazing and the privileges we have within our country, and then even what we don't have outside of the country. And having a wife who's from Brazil and became a naturalized U.S. citizen and going through that process and being very, very connected, but having restrictions within the mission agency that I was a part of doing, even though I was doing leadership development, helping people and communities and even organizations with leadership development, we had certain restrictions. But, you know, when Donald Trump got elected and just the clear violations of just everything that's happening from the Democrats, the media, to even the Republican Party attacking even within his own administration, yet he got so much accomplished, and seeing the clear frustration and direction that we were splitting on two different types of America, the question became clear: what about our kids? You know, as I hold up this picture right here, I think about my girls. Isabella's 14, Sophia's 11. And I wonder, what kind of an America are they going to inherit? And I was looking at who's going to stand up and do this. And so many people said, well, why would you want to get involved in politics? It's so dirty. And I'm thinking, well, gosh, if we don't get the right people elected, guess who fills the void? And so when I first brought it up to my wife, she said, like, why would we ever want to do that? But, you know, fast forward 6 months of praying, and I knew I wasn't going to get involved until we were totally connected in this. And so the Lord clearly spoke to her and said, you got to release Scotty. I made him for this moment. And so I'm stepping into this not as a career politician, not as a person who's had this desire to step in. Although I really believe that politics is something that God has created and ordained, the government. And when we're being led poorly, like right now, the people suffer. Look at Venezuela. And so we need to get godly leadership. We need to have a backbone and strength, because it's really about our future and our kids' future right now. And that's why I'm stepping into this space.
What do you want to do first? So, you know, let's say your campaign goes well, you get elected, you're showing up in the office here. What's the first thing you want to tackle, policy wise, legislative wise? What do you want to accomplish, you know, first days or first weeks? Scotty, Jacqueline, and then Alicia.
Great. Appreciate the opportunity. Good question. So one of the first things that I have the privilege to do when I get elected is that I'll have a chance to fire Nancy Pelosi. And this is not just rhetoric, it's true, and elect America First leadership. We got to get the right leadership in place. And that's why I put it front and center on my literature here. You know, we need to get, and I say America First, having a Brazilian wife who became a U.S. citizen, because I really believe that leadership matters, and that means caring for your people and taking care of your people, your country. And so I really believe in having leadership and policies that support and defend the United States. And one of the privileges of being a congressman or woman is that there's oversight in making sure we're going and protecting the national interests. And so when you think about energy independence or lack thereof currently right now, when you talk about the border and lack thereof of a border, and you got fentanyl, human trafficking is a massive thing that's happening all across the border. I've got 2 young daughters, and so it's very near and dear to my heart. When you're talking about wars, rumors of wars, what happened in Afghanistan, when you talk about the economy going up and down, these are all issues that I really believe that it's the Congress purview to oversight and to make sure we're heading in the right direction. Yeah, I talk about, it feels like the house is on fire and people in Congress are worried about the drapes right now. You know, we got to put out the fire. If we worry about the drapes, we're going to lose the whole house. We're going to lose the whole country. And so I believe that we need to work together from school boards to local to state, even to federal. And the federal needs to make sure that if we focus just too much on the local stuff, we're going to lose our country. And that's part of my job and what I look forward to pushing into.
What has been some of the feedback from your local community? What are some of the things that are the hot topic items that your community is pushing to see?
Yeah, when I'm talking to voters, they are fired up. I mean, they simply are fired up. They're looking at what happened in the 2020 election. They're looking at over the past 15 months, how fast things have accelerated. I mean, just here's a few things. I really believe, and this is what I say when I'm getting up and talking, that we're in a critical moment in our nation's history, that leadership matters. Nations rise and fall due to leadership. If you consider what happened in Venezuela 20 years ago and where they're at right now, the Venezuelans, the Cubans, they're all sounding the alarm saying, danger, danger, watch out. Oh my gosh, why are we not waking up to this? And this critical moment, look at the economy, inflation, some of the worst inflation we've ever experienced in the past 5 decades. Joe Biden's Jimmy Carter 2.0 right now. We got gas, we got food shortages, transportation problems. We've got, ships being held up. The costs are going through the roof. The power of the dollar is going down. It's one big hot mess. I just really believe that we're in a critical moment in our nation's history when you factor in election integrity. What happened? The majority of Americans, and I hear this so often to differing degrees, granted, but the majority of Americans believe that something went down in this 2020 election, and we have not gone after it. Only a few people have, and many of them are saying, you know what, we'll do better next time. Well, that's not enough because it undermines the very fabric of our constitutional republic when we do not have confidence in the people who got elected in the first place. Did they really? That is a major issue. When you talk about parents' rights, when the government starts labeling parents domestic terrorists, that's a big problem. And that's where the two meet. You got the federal and you got the local, and all of a sudden it's a big deal. And we got to start speaking up and saying, no, the government does not have an ability to overreach and start indoctrinating our kids. I hear this so often. What about pro-life? When all eyes were on Ukraine and Russia, the Dems tried to push through a wide-sweeping abortion bill that would basically legalize abortion throughout all 50 states up until birth. And I talk about, that's not just foolish policy, that's just downright evil. That is wrong. And any nation that doesn't protect life is a nation that's really at risk. Governor DeSantis does that. No government overreach, the vaccine mandate, the mask mandate. Thankfully, we have a federal judge here in Florida that was able to have some strength and backbone and push back and say, no, it's not constitutional. And the Biden administration is not fighting it because they know they'll lose. Border security, I mentioned it, but what nation that loses its borders is not a nation at all? And not only that, but we have people on terrorist watch list have been caught. So what about the people who haven't been caught? What about the fentanyl, the drugs, the craziness? What about the human trafficking? Everything's at risk. And don't miss the fact that they're pouring into free states like Texas, Florida, Tennessee, other places. They're being shipped here. And we got to watch out for that. I'm hearing that. National security. What happened in Afghanistan? How come we're not talking about that anymore? That was a disaster. 13 servicemen and women lost their lives. What about Ukraine, Russia? What's going on? We're not even protecting our own borders. Second Amendment, we got to have peace through strength. We got to make sure that we're protected. You look at what happened in Australia, even to the north in Canada, and the loss of freedoms. It's a slippery slope. We got to fight for it. Religious freedoms. I mean, I'm hearing about all these things. The challenge is there's too much to talk about. So those are just a handful of the things that we talk about as I'm out in the trail.
I'd be really curious kind of what your philosophy is on mandates, particularly these top-down federal and state mandates. If there's anything you think you could do potentially in your particular office to address the mandates, whether you think they're good or bad, what you would do to either give them strength or weaken them. So, Scotty.
Yes. So let me be super clear here. Fauci must be fired, and our government must be held accountable for the overreach and what they've done. They're starting to take away our civil liberties. They have taken it away, and they're doing what is unconstitutional here. And this affects, by the way, the federal, but also to the local, because California, there were schools that were vaccinating kids without their parent consent. And that is flat out wrong, horrible. We got to call it out. And what we need are people who are willing to fight and push back and say, no. We cannot allow this to happen. And so Fauci must be fired. The CDC, the NIH, there is this administrative state, these unelected officials who are appointed, and then they're pushing policy. There's no repercussions for them. There's no, they're even being brought before Congress, and they're having discrepancies, even perjury, and they're not being held accountable. And this is wrong. The problem with the vaccine, if people want to get the vaccine, that's their choice. This is America, and we have freedom in that. But the problem is when the vaccine mandates start getting walked back, which have been happening, you can't undo the jab. And when you start forcing kids to go to school and to have a vaccine, even if they don't want to, or into a job, which you need to have a job, and then they start walking back, you can't undo that. And the other thing that we're not talking about is some of the effects, still emergency use. We're not also talking about hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, vitamin D, other areas and other ways to fight this. And Dr. Peter McCullough and Dr. Corey and Malone, who developed the RNA technology, and what Senator Johnson has been talking about, and also Senator Rand Paul, that is not being talked enough. That's not getting mainstream. We're being shut down with big tech. That's a major problem. We have zero freedom of speech when it comes to that. We're saying certain things. It's called conspiracy theories, but guess what? It's proven true. And then all of a sudden it just is brought up, but there's no, this is a very, very dangerous time. It's a critical moment in our nation's history. We need to wake up, people. We need to rise up. And I'm terrified that people are just passive and just hope it gets better without getting engaged. We need everybody to be engaged. This cannot happen. Your freedoms, your life, your reality matters. We need to fight back for our kids, for our future, and for the legacy that we're leaving on, or our country risks being destroyed. That's a clear choice right now.
So can you guys touch on a little bit what you'll do to help create positive marketing or help to change the narrative when it comes to the education that is filtering down into the community, and how what kind of steps you'll take for that at the school board level and the congressional level?
Yeah, so once again, I appreciate the question and where we're at. Once again, free speech, and Twitter, Facebook, Instagram to a certain part, YouTube. These are platforms where people get their voice out, and it's being censored. And there's clearly an agenda being pushed, and it's an indoctrination, and then it's a suppression of certain things that they don't want said in what's happening, and they're pushing in that. Then we got to, first and foremost, we got to wake up and call it out, and we have to have people understand that this is theater. It's political theater of what's happening. Not only that, they're using the language against us, and they're couching it, and they become super strong experts. I'll give you a couple of examples. They'll call a bill, for example, called the voter integrity bill, but it's anything but. But they do that so when I vote against it, because it's not really voter integrity, now they frame it up as Scotty's against voter integrity. Not true. What about the infrastructure bill? Anything but. Very, 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 very small percentage of infrastructure, and the rest of pork and special projects here and there. But I vote against it. Now I'm against infrastructure. And by the way, this is trickled down into nonprofits and churches, because all of a sudden they're saying, you know what? We don't get involved in politics, hands off. Well, long before this was a quote unquote political issue, medical mandate and stuff like that, this was a biblical and a moral issue and a constitutional issue. But it's gotten framed up into the politics. And so people choose to not engage in it. And so we got to recognize that, push back, And here's the thing, I think the majority of people want to live their lives. We want to raise our family. We want to go to work. We want to enjoy our lives and have fun. And we don't want to get in fights. We're not looking for a fight. The problem is that the peacetime is come and gone. There will be a time of peace, but we have to fight for it now. And so the challenge is we're either losing ground or we're taking ground. And if you're passive or just hope it gets better, you're losing ground. And so we have to fight it. We're not looking for a fight, but it's come to us and we have a response. What are we going to do? And if we don't do anything, we lose ground. And it's a come to Jesus moment here, everybody. 2022, the midterms, we have to rise up and decide what type of America, what type of future for our kids and future grandkids. This is not just rhetoric anymore. Look at Venezuela. Look at what happened in Cuba. This is heading to our shores. We got to stop it. And this matters.
Yeah. What are opportunities are out there with you, or maybe with a similar candidate that lives closer to them, or whatever? What would you recommend to people? How could they get involved with you in your campaign, or how might they get involved with a similar campaign? What can people jump up and do, starting tomorrow if they say, hey, I resonate here, I want to do something?
Yeah, so there's that saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. In this idea of sometimes it can feel overwhelming. I get it, and the next best step you can take is just one more step, and then the next step, and the next step. And before you know it, bring some people with you, and we can cover a significant amount. Don't underestimate your mobilization potential and connection. Your giving, we give to what we care about. And if we care about our nation from the local level, even to the federal level, we got to give, even if it's $5 or $10 up to 5,800, which is the max. We can help others give. We got a network. We have people around us. Don't underestimate. Take the next step. You can check us out. We each have a website. Mine is ScottyMoreForCongress.com, Scotty with a Y. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can share. You can help spread the message. The idea is we don't know what's going on in people's lives, but we do know the fact that most of the people have been touched by one of these issues, whether it's the economy, vaccine mandates. We don't know, but it's okay to speak up and talk about these things, because if we don't, we risk losing our nation. And so what you can do is we need you to get out and put some signs in. We need volunteers. You can donate at the website. You can sign up to volunteer at the website. The primary was mentioned August 23rd. I really am a firm believer that not all candidates are alike. There are a lot of people that I'm running against. Get a look at the field, figure out who's got the best shot, who aligns with your values, and really help that person get through. It's not enough to just hope that person gets through or just focus went through, because you may not get the right person through in the primary, and then you kind of are left with two bad choices. So the idea is who's the right person, and then hold them accountable. People have my cell phone. They can reach out. That's what we need to do. Listen, I'm not in it for power, because if I were, I wouldn't have stayed in my current reality as a missionary for 21 years. I'm not in it for the prestige or the position. And that's actually part of the problem. We have politicians who care more about the power and the position and the money and the influence than they do about our nation and our kids. And we're sacrificing our future because of that. And we need politicians, people who care about our country and who are going to do the right thing, even when it's hard. And we need to elect those people, figure out who they are, and take the next step, help them out. Find who they are. Join with me, ScottyMoreForCongress.com. I sure could use your help. I know these ladies could as well. We need the local all the way up to the federal. We need to mobilize the grassroots campaign. Will you please help us?
John, do you want to close this out?
I think it was a wonderful forum. We appreciate everybody being here. Again, be active. I know some people were asking about questions. Again, show up every week. The sooner you put your questions in, the more likely we can get them. We can't cover every possible formulation of every question, but we do try to get all the main topics covered. We'll see you next week. Hope you join us 8:30 p.m. Eastern for another one of these great sessions. Thank you to these wonderful candidates for making time and connecting with the audience. And we're hoping to see all of you out there as we get into campaign season. Let's get the right people elected to fulfill our wishes. All right. Check y'all out later. See you next